Hello, and welcome to the Off-Script Physio podcast. I am Kaz, and we've got over here my friend Bowie.
Hello.
So today we have got a physio who is doing what I thought I wanted to do when I was at uni, and that is to be a physio for the Canadian snowboard team. How cool is that? We're going to talk about all things travel, all things getting to where you want to go and how you get there. So it's a really interesting interview. Let's get started. We're hearing from Jian Soares.
Alrighty. Welcome, Jian, to the Off-Script podcast. We're going to jump straight into it. And thanks so much for being here. And we're talking all things kind of travel today. The traveling physio and all the things that are involved in being on the road with athletes and the implications that come on to you as the healthcare professional. That's there kind of all the time with them. So tell us a little bit about you, your travel experiences as a physiotherapist.
I work for the Canadian snowboard team, the national team in the freestyle discipline. So that is big air, slope style, and half pipe. So you may have seen some of the athletes riding in stuff like X Games, for example. Yeah, I've been traveling with the team for 6 years, and it's been a bit of a ride in that time, and it's been really awesome. I mean, traveling with a national team is just so epic. You get to go to some of the best ski resorts in the world. You get to go to some of the biggest events in the world for snowboarding and freestyle skiing. So it's an epic ride, and you get to see athletes perform at the highest level in a sport that I love, which is snowboarding. So yeah, it's been awesome.
One of the best things is going to like the wicked ski resorts. Let's be honest. It is nice when you get into these done the hard work as a professional and you get to enjoy some of the little perks. So definitely one of the upsides of traveling.
I can't wait to dig into the travel more, but I don't want to skip over this fact that I don't know that I would say unusual, but certainly impressive in that this was something you had your eyes on back studying physio and progressing. This was something you really wanted to do, and you actually translated it and made it happen. Can you talk a little bit to this desire that you had and perhaps the express version of how you got yourself here?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess as a kid, I was always interested in traditional sports, but I was a skateboarder and I was into board sports. And for some reason, as a kid growing up in Perth, I always wanted to go to the snow and learn how to snowboard. So that was always on my mind in undergrad at physio school. So talking to my lecturers, some of the lecturers at Curtin, that were Canadian, I got some advice from them that was actually game-changing for my career. So they told me, if you want to work in Canada, go ahead and get out as soon as you can after university and get the exam done, get the credentialing process done, because it takes a little while and it's a bit arduous. So I took that advice a couple of years after I graduated. I got 2 years of experience and then went out and sat the exams and passed them and was able to be registered as a physio in Canada. And then after my master's degree, I decided to make a bit of a change, because I did my master's more in like chronic pain management with Ben. And it was super interesting, but I started to feel more and more into the master's that while it was interesting, it wasn't really for me. And I wanted to take a different direction. And I thought I'd pursue trying to work with ski and snowboard athletes. So one of the best places to do that was Whistler, Canada. And I looked at some clinics over here and decided to apply to one and got the job. And then a few months later, I was able to get an opportunity with ski cross, actually. So it wasn't with snowboarding, but it was with another national team during the summer. And I really enjoyed that, and then got an opportunity with the snowboard team to help out with some of their treatments, and it just kind of spiraled from there. So they decided that we were a good fit and wanted me to take me on as one of their team physios. So yeah, that worked out really well.
Awesome. So look, looking back on that journey now, it's not an easy thing, and a lot of things have to line up for the right opportunity to come, and you have to be open, I think. But listening to you, being open to, progressing and being proactive in your approach, looking back, what was, did you have any moments where you thought, I'm not sure if this is the right thing, or should I be doing something else? Or because making a move to Canada, joining teams, they're big deals. So was there moments of uncertainty in making these decisions, or were you just that's it, I know what I want?
I wish I could say I was that confident, but I definitely wasn't early on. I'm coming from an area where there's no snow and basically no mountains, and not having a lot of experience with treating snowboard and ski injuries. Yeah, I was a bit under the water when I first started treating those athletes, but I learned pretty quickly that there is a bit of a crossover between a traditional team sports and injuries on snow. It's just a different mechanism. So that interest grew as I worked and lived in Whistler. And yeah, I think there's always times where I felt that I wasn't the right person for the job. I mean, when I started with the team, I'd never really worked with national team athletes. I'd worked with high level sports, but not at the elite level. So when you get into elite performance, it's definitely a different ball game. You're treating high profile athletes that you get opinions from the best medical teams in the world. So it is definitely a scary thing to have your opinion in team conversations and looking at return to sport decisions and having your input there and really backing yourself. So it takes a while to develop the confidence. And I think that was a huge growth phase for me, at least in the first few years working with the team, that, I do deserve to be here. I have a voice and people want to listen. And it often isn't what people want to hear when you're making return to sport decisions, right? You have to be the person that holds the athlete back, and you're talking to coaches and you're talking to athletes and parents of some of these athletes as well. And there's often times where you have to have difficult decisions with all of those parties. But really, if you back yourself there, you're doing right for the athlete and the team by making the hard decision, but the unpopular decision some of the time. So yeah.
We love to hear it, though. The fact that when you're in a position like you are, doing amazing things like you're doing, it's easy for people to fall into the trap of thinking that that was an easy, straightforward, talented, I always know what I'm doing sort of pathway. And it's really important for us to communicate that it doesn't feel like that on the inside, even though it may look like that on the outside. So we really appreciate the vulnerability there. But what I'm hearing is you had the passion, you had sort of a desire for this discipline or this range of disciplines. You may not have had the physical experience doing it so much, but you knew intimately the body and how it worked. And I think at the end of the day, something we develop good skills in is this complex decision making, weighing up risk and reward in these return to sport decisions. So it's not necessarily having the most experience at elite level. It's not necessarily having the most experience in the sport, but it's drawing on all those skills. And as you said, backing ourselves on them. I'm fascinated to hear what the rhythm of a year is like for you, because I know you have your thumb in a few pies. There's institute stuff, there's team stuff, and there's even still a bit of private practice stuff, I think. So what's the rhythm of the year for you, Jian?
It's definitely a bit of a circus all the way through the year. We have a pretty big season with snow season, because with snow sports, you really have to take advantage of whenever there's snow. That's when we train, right? So our season actually starts in August in Australia, in our summer season, I guess. So our off season is during our summer, and then as soon as there's snow in Australia, we have a training camp. So it tends to be Australia and New Zealand is the start of our preseason on snow. And then we lead into training and competitions in Europe, US, China, which tends to take us into like October, November, which is where we're at now. I'm about to take off on a trip in a couple of weeks' time for a training camp. And that tends to go all the way to March, April, where we still have competitions. And then we have spring camp. So Whistler is open until mid-May. So we'll have training all the way to mid-May, and then we have staff meetings and planning for the next season. So by the time we're all wrapped up with that, it's probably mid-May, early June, and then we get June, July pretty much off, but still training with the athletes on dry land. So in the gym and doing rehab for athletes that are getting back on track and about to get back on snow. So it is a full year thing. So I guess that's just for snowboard, which I travel with. But then in the summer season, I also work at the Canadian Sports Institute working with athletes from other teams. So other teams will contract me to do some rehab work with them as well. So that takes up a lot of my time. And then throughout the year, I do clinic stuff. And I see kind of recreational athletes, high level athletes, but still recreational. As well as some summer athletes, some extreme sport athletes, climbers, mountain bikers, that sort of thing. So I guess the area that I'm in is centered around adventure sports. So I don't see a traditional athlete.
It kind of sounds like your career is a little bit of an adventure as well, which I love. So yeah, two things there, right? So firstly, I do love the little nod to the circus. Obviously, Kaz and I both working for the circus there, so we're both like, yep, we can relate.
I actually didn't plan that, but that worked.
It worked out perfectly. And then also too, sorry, I was just reflecting a little bit as you're talking, and it had this very like cool running style feel to your life. Like you come from Perth, where we don't get any snow whatsoever, and then you're like going into like the elite level of snow sports. So it's pretty cool. If we needed to do a physio movie, I've got an idea. So looking back, right, at all these things so far, and as Kaz is kind of saying, like it feels, I think a lot of junior physios look at these types of things, or like, new grad physios coming out, and they're like, I want to do that. I want to be in sports. And it's always nice to hear from somebody that's kind of in it, and that it's that there are senses of uncertainty and imposter syndrome in certain decision making, and the weight of it, and that it's a kind of continuous journey. But looking back now, were there like particular moments that you're like, this is awesome, like this is the best, I'm so like the highlights of your career? Is that just whether it was like as a physio or you were just snowboarding down in some cool, amazing place? Like what's the like little moments that are like, this is just, I'm so glad I did this as a profession?
I think there's pinch me moments all the time in this profession. I mean, there's a couple of situations where we've had days off. So I guess with freestyle snowboarding, it actually isn't very beneficial when it actively snows, because the course gets closed and they have to rake out the snow. So when it's actively snowing, we get to go riding, which is really cool. So there's a couple of days where we've had massive snow dumps, and we go out riding with the athletes, and you're riding alongside with them, and they're hitting a 60-foot jump right next to you, and you get to watch it happen in real time. It's pretty spectacular, right? Like it's you're seeing things that very few people can do in the world, and you're riding with these athletes. Definitely not at the same level, 100% not at the same level, but it's there's definitely pinch me moments like that all the time. And I guess we work with some high profile athletes. So I did catch the chairlift with Scotty James once, which was pretty cool. And we got to have a chat, and he was pretty upset that I was working for Canada instead of the Australian team. He really told me how he felt, but that's okay.
Oh, well, they love to steal us, don't they, Canada?
Yeah.
I've got a question exactly on that, because it's something that I know Bowie and I have thought about and lived a lot with our traveling, touring experiences as physios as well, is that continuum of friend versus therapist. Because when you travel, you don't go to your own home at the end of the day, your own family, your own friends. You're a bubble, and you're living with these people, and it does sort of bring in that family-like atmosphere, but you still need to feel that there's an element of trust and respect that you get from a therapist relationship, while balancing that with genuinely getting along with people in a social setting. So how do you work that? What are your thoughts there, and how do you manage that when you travel?
I think that's so difficult with any traveling team, really, especially when you're on the road for weeks or months. And it's a boundary that sometimes gets blurred. Well, often gets blurred. I think because you're not just a physio to them. Sometimes you're also their driver or their companion or their emotional support or their chaperone. Sometimes if they're an underage athlete. So it's a skill, I think, to manage that, because it's important for the athlete to trust you, and for them to trust you. You can't just be their treating therapist, right? Like at some point, you do need to be their friend and confidant, and then they open up to you in ways that they may not open up to their coaches or their other athletes. And I've had athletes on the table tell me stuff they haven't told anybody else on the team, and that's a very valuable asset, but a very tricky position to be in when they're telling you things that, might impact their career, their performance. So navigating that is a challenge. How to manage it? I think it is important to keep some boundaries, and like it's good to hang out with athletes, but I think there should be some separation there, where they go do their thing and you go do your thing. communication should always be paramount and at a professional level.
That's beautifully put. And what you've probably got some thoughts here too, Bowie.
Oh, yeah, so many. Yeah, so many. Look, it's such a, and I'm sure like people, like it's kind of this subjective ambiguity, right? It's easy in retrospect, and it's easy from a step to take a step back and be like, oh, here's the clear lines, and it's clear. But it is tricky. Like, Kaz and I both had these experiences, and working with Cirque, I would sometimes be there over hours, supporting people late into the night because there's a performance requirement the next day, which is kind of this blurred line between some like kind of classic physio approach where we're rehabbing people and also then just the extra mile that we just tend to go. And then there's this healthcare caring role that we do with discussing things and allowing that mental performance side and mental anxiety. So one of the things I think a lot about with the traveling teams is like, how well equipped are we as physiotherapists? And I think this talks potentially as well to the direction of where physio might be going as a profession, like this kind of psychophysiotherapy interrelationship. Going into your roles and your experiences, do you reckon there's an innate like experience you learn it as a physio as you go, or was there moments where you learn things off other people or mentors, or like how do you reckon you develop these skills that are not taught in university? They're all these soft skills. What do you reckon, Jian? Where do they come from?
I think part of it is personality based. I think one of the reasons I got the job and have stayed in this role is because I get to touch base with the athletes on a personal level while still maintaining a level of professionalism. And I honestly think that to develop a strong therapeutic alliance with a patient, you have to have that relationship on a personal level. So it is a difficult landscape and place to navigate. To some extent, I think it's innate. There'll be some people that may be great therapists, but have the wrong personality type for that athlete. And for that reason, they may cross a line with an athlete that they didn't realize was a line, right? Like they might get too friendly with an athlete and not do anything wrong, but just kind of take the athlete the wrong way, or, even vice versa. If the athlete's too attached to one therapist, that's bad as well, right? But I think having mentorship through the team with other therapists, with mental performance coaches, I think that's really important as well. How to navigate that landscape, especially during injury as well. Like we rely heavily as a medical team rather than just individual therapists. So we have ideas to bounce across the team. So with our team doctor, with other physios on the team, with a mental performance coach and S&C, we work very, very closely. And we manage the athlete together. So yeah, I think that helps.
I think it's a good summary. There's definitely, and we've seen this too, Bowie, there's definitely a type that fits well with that, touring and traveling lifestyle. It doesn't suit all people, and that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it does take a special type. On that, for anyone who is in elite sports settings and traveling, it can be very all-consuming. And you did mention the term boundaries there. Are there any sort of routines or rituals that you have when you're living out of a suitcase to bring a bit of grounding to yourself, or to how do you find Jian away from elite sports physio Jian?
That's a good question. I could definitely use some advice on, but I think I'm getting better at it.
How do you find inner peace? Simple question.
I think having a routine when you're on the road is super important. We kind of have a daily timeline that we work on, and that may be a long day. So we may be up on the mountain at like 8 a.m. and then physio may go till 8 p.m. But it's important to take that time for yourself. And I've learned this a lot from our coaching staff as well, that we usually have a coach's house when we're together, and the coaches will all wake up 2 or 3 hours before the athletes get up, and they'll go for a run or do some yoga, or just read and take some time to themselves and really shut down and not talk to anybody, because we know for the next 12 hours we're going to be in constant communication and need to be switched on. So I think that's super important, and I've started to do that myself to really ground myself for the day. At night, It's sometimes a little bit challenging. Like we go quite late into the night some days, and we have meetings just before bed and dinner, and then trying to switch off and call home and talk to my girlfriend or read a book and take some time away for myself. Winding down is pretty important. So I find that helps on the road because it can be overwhelming. I think it definitely is a lot, and you're technically on call all the time. I mean, I've got calls early in the morning or late at night with medical stuff or like injury based stuff. So you're definitely on all the time, but you can take time to yourself to get some of that back.
That's a reality. It's always going to be that way, isn't it? And I do want to share before you jump in, Bowie, this fun
Good.
story about Bowie
Fair
is
enough.
that when we were touring together, part of Bowie's grounding was buying himself a very elaborate personal coffee machine that he decided to cart around. And one day he
Correct.
invited me to his room for a coffee, and here's this Melbourne cafe style machine and coffee. He hands it to me. I think there was even latte art. So that was a little insight
Yep.
into Bowie.
Yeah.
I wonder how much
It's-
additional baggage that costed.
I think it took an entire suitcase.
He didn't bring clothes. He just
No,
brought coffee.
no,
Sorry.
exactly. But and I think to be honest with you, that was kind of a spur of the moment purchase. I've like a little bit of homesickness away, and I was just like, what do I need? I need something that grounds me. What do I like? Coffee. That's what I'll do. It became ritualistic in the morning, getting up, being like, okay, because if you're moving from hotels to hotels, and there's especially with the like high speed of performance. I mean, I guess some of the differences between like our performance life is that Cirque puts on 10 performances a week. It's less peak performance, but more maybe sustained performance. So so I guess it's just interesting to make sure that you then have those little rituals to get that sense of day-to-day work and life balance. And it's interesting how you're kind of talking about this like nice balance between being an introvert and having your own time and that what that looks as grounding, and then being the kind of extrovert, as you kind of said, with this personality type, being confidant, being with people and making big decisions. And so it's a nice little balance. One of the things I think that's really interesting when we talk about grounding and work is that, and I'll throw it both to you as well. Like when you're in these leading roles and making decisions, I think that the weight of those decisions, and we don't get them right every single time. And there's gray. There's lots of gray. If there's clear black and white, it wouldn't be not necessarily a hard job. But we're making these big decisions about performances, about people's lives, and pretending that we have this kind of crystal ball and making the best decision we have based on the information. How do you feel about separating yourself from those decisions? Like I personally feel like sometimes I come home and I ruminate on them. Like I find it hard to not second guess myself and ask the what ifs or did I get this decision right? Does that resonate with you? And how do you manage those situations?
For sure. I think at some point we have to own our own decisions, and I've definitely owned mine, but there's a lot of thought process that goes behind that. There's been a lot of constructive conversations with the team about an athlete return to snow program that, even if the team thinks that's the best idea, I've gone against that. And I've provided my reasons for that. And I'm lucky that I work in a team that's very open-minded and want to hear my ideas as well as put their own out. So the discussions have always been constructive with that. But really, if I'm making a decision, I really want to own it, and I want to have backing as to why I'm making that decision. And like you said, you don't have a crystal ball. Things may go completely wrong with your decision-making process, but really what you want to think about is this going to benefit the athlete, and why do you think that's going to benefit the athlete compared to other decisions? So if I've made the decision based on that thought process, then I tend to be pretty happy with that, even if I'm wrong in the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that the team are very open-minded and very open to your input, which is a testament to your personality that you put that on them. I would switch that around and say that they are open when you approach them with good quality information and your own openness, and that feeds into that relationship. So that is just as much you. And then no doubt, Jian, I think it's a really interesting situation where you've got this relationship with all let's say, the key stakeholders of that decision. And I think we can have a degree of confidence. We never know 100% what an outcome will be, but it's just phrasing it that way, isn't it? That I would give it this chance that this will happen. There's always this percentage chance that something else will happen. And your team gets to know your confidence levels. And I think it's not about sitting on anything at 100%. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to go about it. The circling thoughts was something Bowie just brought up as well. So I might just piggyback off that. How do you manage that feeling of like, I'm lying in bed and something's going around and round? Maybe you experience it, maybe you don't. I think we're all human and we do. Do you have any go-to ways that you would manage circling thoughts, or that you have ways that you learn to disconnect when you either need to sleep or need to have a weekend off?
Yeah. There's a couple of unconventional ways that I would do that. I'm a massive chess nerd, and chess takes a lot of brain power, so I can't ruminate if I'm focusing on playing chess. So I don't know if that's a hint for other people to take that on and take on chess, but it works for me. So maybe that might be the way to
Love
go.
that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Love that too.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
means, I mean, the go-to message from that is find something that engages completely your mental faculties, and that is a good replacement for thinking about work when you're not there.
Do you know what? It's funny. I mean, look, it's not chess, but I had about a 7-week period when I was with Cirque in Brazil, and I was down just to myself. My second therapist wasn't there, and so I was working like 70-hour weeks. And not, when I say working, I'm going to be honest. Like a lot of the time, sometimes I was just present on site because I had to be for emergency situations. I wasn't really, it's not like I was, massaging 2 people at once for 70 hours. But one of the things that really helped me during that time was I learned how to do a Rubik's Cube. And it was like, there's points in the afternoon when just before show, and I was like, I need to turn my brain off. So I just went, right. I spent like half an hour going through, and some of those just like little tasks, it really grounded me and really helped because I just needed my brain away. I needed, my social battery was low. My kind of healthcare battery was low. So having those little things I think are really helpful because if we don't kind of prop these ideas up. I think about the kind of emerging therapists into these roles and sometimes how overwhelming it can be and what the consequence of burnout can be. If you're working so hard in these roles, burnout, I think you can get to the point where you're not even loving, the opportunity that you've been vying for this whole time. So yeah, I think it's really helpful just to hear some of those little insights that you've had. Have you experienced burnout whilst traveling? Have you experienced points when you're like, oh man, I just want to be home?
Sure. Yeah, I think especially coming to the tail end of the season, you've been on the road for quite a while. Even though you're going to fantastic locations, you're away from friends, you're away from family. You're on a regimented routine that sometimes, like you said, might be a low load, but it can be a few high stress, high pressure, high workload days. And basically you're just in the hamster roll of eat, sleep, physio, repeat. So yeah, it's pretty full on. It gets pretty hectic sometimes and you have to be switched on all the time. So I think I've definitely experienced, I guess you could call it burnout. It doesn't mean I've lost love for the job. I still love the job, but it definitely weighs on you. So it's nice to take that step away after the season ends and take time for yourself. I actually decided that I didn't want to go on the Australia trip this season. I wanted to spend like Canadian summer here because that's a time where I can kind of get into the sports that I really love and spend time with my friends and family. So there is the aspect of that for sure. It's not all roses when you're traveling with the team. There are some difficult points, and it starts to weigh on you after a long trip or multiple trips in a row.
It really resonated, that comment that you said, that just because you're burnt out doesn't mean you don't love what you're doing. I think that's so important, and I think it's I really appreciate you sharing that, because, or that we have these waves of feeling flat and feeling engaged, because it is where you want to be and what you want to be doing. That doesn't just mean every day is a happy day. So it's really good to share things like that. I'm going to shift gear a little bit, and if you sort of look back at your years now that you've been doing these exciting trips and roles and working with these different athletes. In terms of work, is there something that you've changed your mind on? Is there an approach that you've switched, or something you've altered your concept of what you thought it was versus what you do now?
I think one thing working in professional sport that I've had to reframe my thinking on, especially coming out of Australia, and I guess maybe even specifically Curtin, the manual therapy debate. I feel like that's such a rampant thing that everybody's like, it's just here and there all the time. Everybody has their 2 cents on it, and coming from a very exercise focused rehab background, working in chronic pain, there's very limited manual therapy that's encouraged for those patients. It's a very psychosocial approach, which is great, but when you're working in performance sport, the manual therapy is so important and opens a window for an increase in performance. So there is the importance of manual therapy as well as the other side. And obviously with performance, exercise is key, and it's what is going to take the athlete to the next level. But the manual therapy piece is the thing that keeps the athletes performing in a high stress, high pressure environment when they're fatigued, when they're sore. That's an important piece as well. So I think that's something that I had to reframe my thinking on. I never really disliked manual therapy or had any issues with it, but where it fits into the performance physio piece, I think it is quite important.
I'm having a little reflective moment of all the times that we've had a bit of a chat, Jian, and one of the reasons why I've always been kind of like drawn to having chat with you over the years, and just interested in your point of view, is that you're not overly didactic, and I find that quite a lot of like experienced quality physios don't talk about the nuance and the approachability of various different models, and can hold that all in mind and then approach it to the patient in front of them. Because I think you're right, we can easily get into these kind of social media style looking at things like hands on, hands off, and when in reality, I think when you talk to most physio, 99% of physios, we know that there are different times for different things. And yes, we inform it with evidence-based practice, but we also inform it with our, context and patient preferences. But yeah, it's nice to just listen to you as a physio and your kind of approach to these types of things. Do you feel like your physiotherapy skills as a whole, you've had you've had this training, this masters, you're now in this kind of peak performance. A lot of physios would look at you and be like, oh, this guy's like a high quality physio. Like, where do you see this development going? Like, do you still keep doing PD? How do you keep developing as a physio?
Yeah, I think development is important at any stage of a physio's career, and I think PD is so important. But I think I've looked at PD a little bit differently in the last few years. I think looking into the performance side, I'm always interested into PD. That's going to take me further. I guess recently, over the last few years, I've really looked into the integration of technology into physiotherapy practice, using things like force plates, stuff that we would use at the Canadian Sports Institute and high level performance gyms, and bringing that to a high level recreational athlete and treating them like high level athletes. They want to be treated like the high level athletes that they are, even though they're recreational. So trying to utilize the tech and bring it into a private practice space.
Do you ever get moments where you're a little bit stuck in the profession? You're like, oh, I'm stuck on a concept, or stuck in this sense of like, I'm not sure what to do next. I mean, you might
Yeah.
not. You might. You said
Like career progression or
Career progression for sure. Yeah, I think I guess Ben as well, you can maybe talk to this with the conservative management ACL stuff. That's been a bit of a challenge going forward, and especially here in Canada, there's definitely been some pushback where I live and work from peers, from other medical professionals, in managing ACLs conservatively, and both of us working for Global, we do a lot of management of healing ACL, conservative management, and know a lot of the research that's emerging out of that. It does make you feel a little bit stuck and questioning the profession when you're constantly reaching roadblocks. When you're reading the research, you're up to date, and people that are supposed to be up to date on the research just won't buy into it and won't even give you the time to talk about it. So yeah, it's definitely been an uphill battle for the last couple of years trying to develop a program for ACL management conservatively here in Canada, but we're still working on it. And I work with a bunch of great physios that yeah, are motivational for me to kind of help push that forward.
It's
Yeah.
about backing it with what you know, though, isn't it? I have had a similar experience, Gian. I ran a telehealth practice well before it was cool. I was a way too early adopter, but I knew that it could work for the people who couldn't access care. And that's what drove me. And I think in that time, it's being gracious with understanding why there's pushback. If you just try and push your agenda, you're missing the opportunity to educate and to be compassionate to people who haven't been on that pathway to learn why something works. So it's a really interesting concept that change happens slow in our profession, in healthcare in general, but it's just chipping away at it, isn't it?
For sure. Sure. And I think surrounding yourself with people that are also up to date on the research and are positive about the whole experience and want to kind of learn and develop with you is super important as well. So
Yeah, I was reflecting on some of the things that you said, and I think you've nailed it right there. I think you're good at surrounding yourself with like a good team. Like listening to you as a team physio, maybe the secret sauce here is that you're very good at surrounding yourself with support networks, and maybe that's like a key element of developing as a physio because it's
And you
hard to.
started that at university, Gian, with the
Yeah.
yeah,
Canadian people around you going where, knowing where you wanted to go. It's a really good point.
So top tip,
yeah.
be a nice guy. But I think it's so important because and then with the first forefront thing that you can see as a moment of being stuck is when you're around a team and they're not willing to be a team, and you're like, yeah, well, hold on a sec, let's discuss these things and progress. But and I think that's a massive part of our profession is essentially like I think sometimes as physios we think of ourselves like a person and a patient, but in reality, even like professional development, career progressions, managing imposter syndrome and the decision making process, like the little nuggets that you've kind of talked to a lot throughout the day has been like, yeah, I've been around people and I make clinical decisions with combinations thing. We manage like the individual athlete in a team holistic approach. So it's really nice to kind of hear that interwoven into like a lot of different aspects. Even when you're talking about how you ground yourself, you're like, I go and have a little chat to look at some of how other people are doing it. Like, this whole like team support network. And I think the support, is so important. And I know you've done some mentoring, and I love doing mentoring, and I've had a couple of amazing mentors. One sitting over there. Like, who are your mentors in your professional and maybe personal life that you look to?
I've been really lucky to have some great mentors a lot along the way. I had some mentors in university that were great, and Kieran Richardson through the global specialist experience. He's been great over the last few years, kind of mentoring me through the ACL stuff. I think on my team, people I look up to are some of the coaches on the team that are great and have some great skill sets that I've been able to chat shop to, but also personally talk about some personal issues as well. So I've been really fortunate in my professional career to have those mentors that can kind of help me through not only personal development but professionally as well. Yeah.
We know there will be people listening who are either physio students or they're early in their career, or maybe they're just at a crossroads and not sure if they want to be in this profession or not. What gaps do you want to fill? What things do you want to talk about that aren't spoken about? What final, like, sort of advice would you have for people in that setting?
I think one of the big things in my career that was beneficial for me is always taking opportunities that I didn't really know if they were going to work out or not. I mean, one of the biggest things I did was after my master's program, focusing more on like pain science, moving to Canada and doing something completely different. And yeah, maybe not having the ideal skill set for that, but just saying yes. And I think that's the biggest step for younger physios to just take every opportunity that you can, even though you may not think it may be the right opportunity for you. If you're interested in it, go for it, see how it goes. Like I was only supposed to be in Whistler for 6 months, and 7 years later, I'm still here, and I'm in my dream job and working my dream career. But it didn't come easy. It took quite a bit of sacrifice, but the sacrifices were worth it. I think I've ended up in an industry that I wasn't really sure I was ever going to be in. I never wanted to work in sports as a physio initially, and now I work primarily in sports. So that was a turn I never thought was going to happen for me, but it did, and I'm pretty stoked on it.
So jump and build the parachute on the way down, as they say. I love that, Jian. That's great advice.
Yeah, wonderful. And then just be a nice guy on the way down. That's what I've learned mostly. Yeah, and have your support network. Make sure somebody else has a parachute for you.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody else.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about it, and it's really lovely to have heard like loads of little insights into what it's like to be that physio with the team on the road and that balance. I'm definitely going to start trying to learn chess. But thanks so much, Jian. Kaz, I'm sure I speak for both of us that it's an absolute pleasure to have you on, and we're so glad to have you, and hopefully we'll have you back for some more conversations in the future. But yeah, thanks so much.
It's good. Thanks, guys.
Wow, that was just so fascinating to learn more about the life of a physio for the Canadian snowboard team. And in fact, it's very timely that we're listening to Jian's conversation because he is, as we speak, at the Winter Olympics in Italy with the Canadian snowboard team. What an experience. I would love to unpack that one day. Now, at Off-Script Physio, we love to make a donation on behalf of our guests to thank them for their time and also to pay it forward. And Jian has chosen Protect Our Winters, which is an organisation that helps passionate outdoor people protect the land they love by promoting non-partisan policies designed to protect our world. You can find the link to Protect Our Winters in our show notes, and we look forward to being in your ears next week. Bye.